In this week's video, we're going to have a photo critique with...
Hey, John. Front door's locked, so I thought I'd let myself in this way. Maybe you can run your intro while I catch my breath.
Well, thanks for barging your way onto the channel. If you guys want to check him out, I'm not quite sure that I should try to promote him, but I guess I will anyway. On Instagram and on YouTube, you can just find Quantz Photo. And he's got all sorts of great videos on there with a wealth of knowledge and information. And of course, you'll probably also love his photos on Instagram. And if your wallet hurts after looking at my page, it'll probably hurt more after looking at his, because he uses more and even more expensive stuff than I do. So welcome, I think.
Well, thanks for squeezing me in, John. I think you might be overselling me a little bit, though, and so you've kind of built me up enough now where I've really got I've got my work cut out for me today.
Well, my goal is usually to leave people disappointed, so
yeah, we're supposed to
let's get started.
Under promise and over deliver, I think, is the mantra that I like to live by, and not sell it all on the front end like you've already done. So it's all uphill from now.
Let's get started. Sure thing. Let's get started with our critique. And just like you, this lady seems to have thrown her hat into the ring without asking. How do you feel about this one?
I like a lot about this image. She's got a great expression on her face. We've got some action going on. If you look at my work, I'm a big fan of action. The couple things that stand out to me, though, would just be the angle of the camera. I'm unsure of why the angle is somewhat of it's kind of a top-down almost feel to it. And with her, she's striking somewhat of a power pose, and so I would think that possibly coming from a lower angle might enhance that pose more so than coming down at her. And you know, and maybe, and I'll throw this back to you, John. Just kind of maybe the fill light could be a little more accentuated.
Yeah, almost all the time I'm trying to go with a low angle usually. I'm probably shooting around knee level most of the time, unless I'm shooting like torso up kind of shots. But if I'm doing full body, I'm usually down that low, because I just want to make the person look more heroic and powerful. And we would have got to that more with this picture. And also, yeah, like you said, I would have added some fill to the shot. And that would have just sort of brought those shadows up a little bit more. And also by going lower, we would have got sort of the horizon line in the background. It would have been lower in the frame and sort of maybe a little bit less distracting. Of course, we always could have added in a hair light and maybe moved the hat the hat toss more towards the camera. That might have been better too. But it is a good photo. We're just sort of giving ideas on how to make it a better photo, because I think everything's working well, just could be a little better. So
yeah, whenever I'm shooting something like this too, when you do have an element of action, and I'm sure that when they were doing this, I'm sure this wasn't the only take, but I like to kind of change my camera angles and adjust where she's throwing the hat, and so then you have, you know, more of a variety once you kind of get everything in the computer, and then even if it doesn't work, you know, completely in one frame, then you might have parts and pieces that you can put together in post and kind of create the ultimate image for something like this. So, but you know, it's a really nice shot.
I did a shot this weekend with a guy throwing playing cards towards the camera, and I probably took like 400 photos. And I still haven't figured it out yet, but I might take like 3 different shots and get them together. So I know what you mean.
Absolutely.
So here on our next one, we have got this football photo. Well, I think this is more up your alley. So what are you thinking with this one?
Well, and looking at this is a strong image. I can. When you have a reflective surface in an image like this, you can instantly see a good bit of the lighting setup based off the reflections. In this case, it's in the helmet. So I can see you've got a fill light, and it looks like another kind of octa coming in a little bit closer. to the player, and then it looks like maybe 2 strip boxes on the side. So there's a lot going on with the lighting, and it looks good. It's got that good graphic kind of feel I like for these types of images. What I might, and it's kind of hard to tell, I'm not there to see what your power settings were. The edge lights for something like this could be kicked up a little bit. I'm seeing a little bit of an edge on the player's right arm on the left side of the frame here. And I think that could probably come up a little bit. And then on the other side, you're washing out that side a little bit by the placement of that, it looks like octabox that's coming down on the shoulder. And so it's playing that delicate balance of the power on that close octabank or octalight, and to where you can kind of separate it from the edge on that side. So some of that could maybe be played with, maybe dropping the power down a little bit, or maybe even a smaller modifier up close to where you would get more of an edge, or you might need to move that edge light back just a little bit. And then I know it's tough when you're shooting these types of photos because the player's usually moving in different positions, and if you watch some of my videos, I usually boom that front light. So when a player kneels down in a position like this, you can bring that light down just a little bit more and catch those eyes that we're losing a little bit underneath the top part of the face mask there. But it's a really good start, and I like where the lighting is kind of going here. I just think it needs just a little bit more massaging. And I'm going to throw it back to you, John, on this too, because you're a master of multiple lights as well.
Well, first thing I want to bring is chin up, and thank you, by the way. When I'm doing, I'm a master of like 5, and you're a master of 7. When I'm doing this sort of shot, I'll usually have the strip that's on the same side as the main light be a half a stop or so brighter. That way it'll just stand out a little bit more, because what happens is that on that shadow side, we have a full shadow, and I guess for me it's on this side, we have a full shadow over here probably, and so we don't need as much light coming back as we need on this side, because maybe on this side we have more like a mid-tone. So I'll make this strip, if we're thinking about how I'm lit right now, I'll make the strip that's on the main light side a little brighter than the shadow side. But I'm with you on this one. I think we're probably looking at 3 stops down from the main light, and it probably should be more like 1 stop down and maybe 2 stops down on the shadow side, somewhere in there, just bringing it up a little bit more. And, I think that the secret sauce a lot of times in pictures is a hair light, and we're missing one here on this one as well. So I would have thought about adding that too.
And I might add too, when you're talking about that hair light on an image like this with a reflective helmet, what I like to do is add a grid to that overhead light. And so it doesn't look like a just white softbox basically reflecting into a helmet. Not that the player would instantly go and see that, but anyone that is a photographer looking at can tell what modifier is in there. But if you put that grid across that light source on top with a reflective helmet, it'll give more of a sense of possibly being like a stadium light. And I did that exact same thing with Atlanta Falcons, who had reflective black helmets. And so I would make sure to have a grid on those lights, just because it takes it a little bit further toward that kind of stadium nighttime type feel.
I wouldn't have thought about that. That's some really good motivational lighting, where you're trying to emulate something in the real world.
Right.
Yeah. So for this photo, I really like how she's posed, and I like the contrast. I like the subtlety of the light on her face. I think it's all very good. Oh, and just as a recap, like we're looking at pictures that we think overall are good. They could just need a little bit of help. So if you think we're focusing too much on the negatives, it's because we're trying to give criticism that would make these images stronger, not because we don't like them. So just kind of keep that in mind as you guys are watching.
Absolutely. And I think I'll add to that as well. I mean, photography as a whole is a subjective type of thing where everyone that looks at your images is going to have their own interpretation, their own thoughts and feelings. And so I think where you have to be careful is always going after like just constant praise from friends and family who are not going to probably tell you, or they probably don't even, wouldn't have the skill set to let you know. Right. Yeah. And so, and I can look back to definitive dates throughout my career where I had a portfolio showing, and at the time it was almost kind of off-putting where someone looked through my work and said, this just isn't going to cut it for what we're looking for.
Yeah.
But then probably months and then, even years after that, I can look back to that instance and say, hey, I thought that guy was a jerk when he first looked at my portfolio, but I can now really appreciate him being honest with me, and that gave me the drive to kind of push forward and do my best on my end to try and increase or improve the look of my work, because you get out in the commercial world and you're not always going to get that feedback. But what's not going to happen is you're not going to get hired. It's just as simple as that.
Right, exactly. That's your feedback is no phone call.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So well, let's give feedback on this one some
This
more.
image, I really think this is a super. I love this image. It looks like a pretty large, soft light source. I like the pose here. I really coming from where I'm coming from, where I use, in a lot of my work, I'm using multiple lights, I'd really appreciate the simpler photographs as far as lighting is concerned. And, right here, we're nailing a really, unique type pose. I like the expression on her face. It's, you can kind of go into like a deadpan type face if you go too far in a certain direction, but I think she's got enough going on here where you kind of avoid that. And, I really like it. I guess if, you have a sequence of images, I can see where this would fit really in with a set of images with this type of look. If I were to say anything, it might be where you might have a positive fill or like a white bounce maybe to fill in some of the shadowing, but there and again, that might actually take away from an image like this.
Oh, see, I was going to say, I would probably burn in that floor shadow of her legs just to make it even stronger, which I guess this goes into that subjective thing.
Yeah.
Because
I was kind of looking up the back.
One of us wants to add and one wants to take away. So
right. Well, and I was kind of looking up the back where you can't quite tell, at least on this screen, what the fabric is on her back there. It looks like she's got some material here in the front and then something kind of in the back. And if you put more light on that, it might be more distracting. But overall, this is a really, really nice image.
Yeah. Then again, it comes back to intent. Like, are we trying to sell clothing, or are we trying to promote a model? And so those could be two very different approaches that you might want to take. The only other thing I would say is maybe you just lower the camera a little bit. I'm not entirely sure it would be successful. There's always sort of a play here of higher angle is making the subject less powerful and lower angle making them more powerful. I kind of instinctively want to come down a little bit, but that doesn't mean that it would be stronger. It might just change the power dynamics between the viewer and the subject. And it might not be what you want, but it's something maybe just to think about and have in the back of your head that our elevation with the camera does translate to the viewer something as well.
And when you talk about that too, John, I'll just throw in, when I first started, I always used a tripod just because I guess it made it easier where I could just set the camera in place and basically direct a little bit more. But rarely now do I ever use a tripod just for that purpose, where I can go up and down, left, right, and just have more of a freedom of movement, and I'm not completely locked down. And I can explore, different angles, like John was mentioning, with an image like this.
So I always see you in your BTS videos laying on the ground, and after I got the R5, I became that guy, and I'm shooting constantly now off the LCD. and I wasn't using a tripod, and now I'm using one. But I know that when you're in those, that's just so that I can frame to 8x10 perfectly in every shot. And like when I'm doing client photos, I can just batch crop everything and be done with it. But I totally get it where, like, when I'm doing a hair shoot and I'm shooting haircuts, I don't want to be on the tripod because I want to move the camera all around. And I can see you doing the same thing with your sports shoots as well.
Right,
So,
exactly. And that's kind of where we, come at two different directions on certain things, and why it's fun to kind of do these types of, critiques with someone like you.
Absolutely, you too. So for this one, the first thing I'm thinking about when I'm looking at this image is that overall, okay, so now the first thing I want to say is it feels a little dark overall. I'm looking at her face specifically, and I see that probably if I took an eyedropper and I read that highlight on her face, the midtone under her eye, that's probably properly exposed, which leads me to think that the fill overall is probably a stop underexposed, and that we just need more light and information in the rest of the frame to sort of bring out some detail in her dress and in her hair and those sorts of things. And also just adding in, it looks like our hair light is coming. So there is a blue gelled hair light. It looks like it's coming from behind her on camera left. I wonder what it would look like if it was behind her, directly behind her. That way we were getting some of that light coming across both shoulders and also fully separating the top of her head from the background. I think that might improve the image a little bit too, although I do understand how that light is sort of doing double duty, and it's coming from camera left and it's edging her out on camera left. And this is a lot of the reason why I'll use 3 lights a lot of the time, so that I can have perfect hair separation and perfect body separation on that side. So, and I probably am messing this up. I keep gesturing for my own lighting setup, not the setup we're looking at. So I guess what I should be saying, well, it's too hard for me to figure that out right now. But yes.
It's like Inception,
So,
where we got a couple cameras here and trying to figure out what.
right, I got to
what.
reverse myself, and yeah. So
No, but
okay,
I
think
totally
what I should
agree.
be saying is over on this side, there's some separation. Yeah. So what were you thinking?
Every one of your points as well, just with it being, and once again, this could be the expression of kind of the artistic direction for this image, is to be kind of a darker type feel, because the face is there. I mean, I like the posing, the propping, that's all great, but I do feel like maybe just like you were saying, to bring in something to give her just a little bit of, like you said, separation, bring her forward a little bit in this frame.
Yeah, and I forgot to say the composition and the pose are really good too. That
I'm here to lift you up, John, when you miss those.
well, I keep forgetting to say the
positives.
nice things first. I really am nice, I swear. So let's see what we have here next. Oh, so we have a rugby photo, and I really like the feeling and emotional story behind this, where we can see that this is after the game and he's tired, and we have this expression that is lower energy, but it's supposed to be because it matches the clothing. Also, it feels like it's late in the day, which that matches our ambiance as well, that this is after competition in that late afternoon. The first thing that I'm thinking about when I'm looking at this is that his lower body is really blending into this background, and that our separation is from his hand up, both hands up, really. And so I'm kind of wondering what this would look like if we came down lower and kind of shot up at him a little bit, perhaps in that sort of like 50 millimeter sort of perspective, and we cut him off mid-thigh. And that might make him look more heroic and then elevate him above the tree line. That's sort of where I'm wanting to go. Sometimes when I'm looking at pictures, I'm like, I'm thinking about them like I'm directing them. I don't know. Like I want to look at the person and go, move your head slightly right, please, please, please. As
No,
I'm champing through.
I agree with you too on that, John. And we weren't there. This looks like a great opportunity for photos, though. A post rugby match where, at least I'm assuming this is after a rugby match because they're covered in mud. He looks like he's been through the ringer, and I would maybe have played a little bit with the ambient, maybe even, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say from here, but maybe if it was a little bit lighter. I know it might have been end of the day and you were cranking off what you could get here. And then along with kind of what John was saying.
You want that to fill the shadows in?
Yeah, and then something like this, there and again, I could see myself maybe kind of getting this shot and then going in and going tight just based off of, hopefully, he doesn't look as dirty like in the face, but maybe you have a couple of players there where you could come in and really get some tight portrait type shots of post rugby where you've really got the wear and the tear. As if it was like football, like you would be, mid third quarter or fourth quarter type of thing, where you're just getting that sweat, that dirt and grime on these guys. And but it's a super nice image, and it looks like you executed it well. One light out there with these guys, and I'm sure they were all tired and ready to go do something else. But I think it's a really nice photo.
Perfect. Well, and now this image is sort of in line with kind of what I was thinking, which is come up closer and get the person above the horizon line and just sort of let them be more powerful in the frame. And I think the styling here really matches the positioning of the camera well, because now we're seeing her looking very powerful, which sort of matches the suit. And I like the lighting overall. I'm wondering, okay, so there is a second light, or it's the sun that's creating the edge on her neck over here, which is on this side. And I'm really, this feels a little hot near her eye here, but I can understand where if that's really the sun, where that we can't maybe fault the photographer for that, because it's like it's if you change your exposure to account for that, then you're changing the brightness of the background, and so you're changing the brightness, the fill, and all of those things. So
no, I really
maybe turning her a little and turning us a little would have changed that
slightly. But going back to the other photo, kind of where you were talking about where the tree line is down kind of around her waist, really kind of accentuates what you were talking about as far as bringing them into the emotion of this model here in this instance, and then what would have been the rugby player in the previous picture. But with this picture here, I love the colors, the tones, her pose, her expression. It's just really nicely done image in my book, and
yeah,
to be picky with some of the lighting there, and maybe have her
be picky. Yeah.
to maybe have her, you could there and again. I'm sure there's some other sequences from this setup here, and this might totally been the hero of the shoot, but maybe she angled a little bit toward that light. And I'm just splitting hairs at this point on this one, because this is just a really fantastic image. The sky, everything just seems to, it's a muted, really pretty image.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess what I was thinking was moving her to her right slightly, moving the camera to our left. So we're just moving around a little and bringing the light around a little with us. So just to lessen that highlight that's over here on her temple. That was all I was thinking.
Yeah, and there's a school of thought too, where when you work in that highlight and you want to watch the side of the nose, when you're placing like edge lights and stuff like that, sometimes it can be distracting when it's coming across. But the lighting here is so soft, and the fill and stuff like that, to me, it doesn't really bother me. But yeah, you could, like you're saying, John, you could work that around and work her around to where you're a little more maybe in control of what's going on from the front. But
then again, if you do what I said, it could look worse. So
right, yeah.
you never start to judge. And I love this hands in the pockets thing because nobody would do that, but it looks so powerful. And,
Yeah, and with the angles it creates with her arms, it's fantastic.
Perfect. Well, let's wrap this up. So next week, you guys can check out me potentially crashing James's channel. So I'll put a link to that. So thank you guys so much for your time. Stay safe. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.